Greetings. We are delighted to have participants from different parts of the world. So, whether you're joining us live or watching us later, thank you for being with us for another session of Spiritist Talk series promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation. And this it is held every Saturday at 11 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. It is my pleasure to host today's talk by Andreia Marshall-Netto, who will be speaking on the topic, the Good Samaritan on the 21st century. Hi, Andrea. What's up?
Hi, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
That is awesome. So I'm so looking forward to for your conversation. Um, Again, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you.
And for those who don't know Andrea, she is the director at Conscious Living Spiritist Group. She's also the director of events of the board of the Spiritist Federation of Florida. She is managing director of Leal Publisher, an affiliated branch of the Leal Livraria in Brazil, in the translation and dissemination of the Valdo Franco Spiritist books, and also Fab Publisher, which is an affiliated branch of the Brazilian Spiritist Federation Publisher in the dissemination of Spiritist titles. So, Andrea, thank you for being with us here and taking time off of your very busy schedule. And
Thank you.
the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Glaucio. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody can hear me clearly. It is an honor, really, to be here talking about a topic that really never gets old. We're talking about the Good Samaritan in the 21st century, as you can see here. And I try to envision what this possibly looked like. And I asked AI to help me with this image, a very busy New York street where people are coming and going, and obviously somebody in much need of assistance there. And it got me thinking, this idea of the Good Samaritan in the 21st century. I'm going to write here in the comments, two books that I utilized a lot for this study. And I hope that you can get a copy either with the International Spiritist Council, Fab Publisher. I know that it's also available via PDF if you're not able to, if you're in another country where you don't have access to it, or even if you're in the US. It is the Spirit's Book and the Gospel According to Spiritism. I'm typing it here so you guys can see this by Allan Kardec. So let's get on to this. The very first thought that came to us about the modern day Good Samaritan is compassion unplugged. And compassion is something that we've also heard of a lot. I personally love this organization about the Charter for Compassion, which was founded by Karen Armstrong. And it is so amazing in its diverse items or tools, if you will, in this very much needed conversation about compassion and about this idea that we are able, not this idea, but this very, very solid objective that each and every one of us should aim and have it with us, which is the aspect of charity. And by the way, here is Allan Kardec. This is something that we have from a Spiritist perspective. We cannot go about this topic, about the Good Samaritan in the 21st century, without bringing the heart of the principle, which is without charity, there is no salvation. And of course, the central idea for our reflection is the question is no longer who is my neighbor, with this aspect of without charity, there is no salvation, but rather, am I becoming a neighbor to the people God placed around me, that God placed on my path? And this can be really anybody in any given situation. So when we look at the road here that we have with Jerusalem to Jericho, which is really the parable that we find in Luke chapter 10, verses 25 through 37, we question, if Jesus told this parable today, where would the road to Jericho be? Where would it be, right? If you're not familiar with this, or if you kind of heard about it but you really don't know what the idea is, I'm going to kind of summarize it. Okay, a man is attacked, he's robbed, he's wounded, and he's left for dead basically on the side of the road. And so a priest sees him and keeps on walking. A Levite, which is one of the 12 tribes back then of ancient Israel, also sees him and keeps on walking. Then a Samaritan, someone whom Jesus' original audience would have regarded as an outsider, as like the out crowd, not the in crowd, but the out crowd, stops. He stops. And he doesn't simply feel compassion. He actually sees the wounded man. He approaches him. He treats his wounds. He places him on his own animal, so he gives him the comfort. He takes him somewhere that is safe, pays for his care, and promises to return on his way back. So that progression is really important for us to consider, because charity moves from perception to action. And this is where Jesus ends up with a very simple instruction: go and do likewise, right? As the Samaritan did. So where would the Jericho road be? It could be our workplace, it could be our family, it could be a hospital room, it could be a school, a shelter, a social media feed, a neighbor's home, or simply the person that is sitting immediately next to us in our home, or somebody who's suffering and nobody notices. And I like to really bring back the memory of our beloved Divaldo Franco, who was a renowned medium. And yeah, a renowned medium. Sorry, I thought I said another word. This is what you get when you're, bilingual. It's like bilingual. But on a serious note, Divaldo would share that Joana de Angelis, his spirit guide, the one that wrote the hundreds of books through his blessed hands, all free of charge, by the way. She told him, she said, pay attention to the invisible in society. And this is very profound, because the invisible are often people that are unnoticed, that for this or that reason, people just don't take a second glance at them. And sometimes there are people that are on the verge of committing an act of suicide, of a homicide. We don't know. And a simple glance at them, a simple approach towards them, a simple action towards them could mean everything. It could mean basically everything. And I remember this story, and if I say it incorrectly, please, I'm going to ask our friends who are in backstage helping me out, Daniel and John. If I get this wrong, please, Klaus, you correct me when you come back to the screen. But there is this story in which Divaldo is dining. I think it was I don't remember where he was in Africa, but the majority were Black, right? And he's sitting there, and of course he's, sticking out, one, because he's a tourist and everybody can tell, but there were other people on the table with him as well. But Joana de Angelis, the spirit guide, approaches him and says, do you see this waiter? When he comes back, I want you to hug him. Let's stop for a second and imagine this scenario. What would you do? I mean, here's your guardian angel. It's like, I want you to hug this man. Please, guys, don't go hugging everybody. But this is just to illustrate the invisible and what we're talking about. And we have to have eyes to see. And at that moment, Divaldo did not, but Joana de Angelis did. And she says that. And Divaldo's like, what am I going to do? And she's like, I don't care what you do or how you do it. Just give him a hug. And the waiter comes back. And lo and behold, Divaldo gets up and gives the guy a hug. And the waiter touched, things. I'm not sure what happened there at that moment, but Divaldo sits back down, and the waiter goes. And then, later on, he finds Divaldo. I'm not sure if it was like in a hotel setting, but what have you. But the guy was really, that night, that was the one night he had a gun with him, and he was going to commit suicide. And that one action saved him. So we need to talk about the aspect of without charity, there is no salvation, because a lot of people think that it's almsgiving, right? I'm going to give a little money to this organization. Today, everything is done via social media. So we're really not seeing, we're just kind of like responding automatically. And there's nothing wrong with it. But sometimes it's above that. It's beyond that. It's not just giving money to this or that shelter or organization that we think so much highly of and that really does need our resources, but sometimes it's somebody right there sitting next to us. Sometimes it's somebody who places on Instagram a phrase about depression. And we see somebody and they're so happy all the time that you figure they're posting for someone else. Well, sometimes they're posting for themselves, right? And a simple reach out, all it takes is a few keystrokes, or even where if we're at the Spirit Center or any religious temple that you may attend that also speaks to your heart. And it's about paying attention to one another. Basically, this is what is about. So, Spiritism expands this meaning of charity, and a lot of us know about, right, the meaning to question 886 from the Spirit's book, in which Kardec asks the benevolent spirits what is meant by the word charity, and as understood by Christ. And sorry, I'm not reading, but it's like ipsis urbs. It's not ipsis urbs. But anyway, if you want to look at it, it's question 886 of the Spirit's book. And the answer is benevolence towards everyone, indulgence for the imperfections of others, and forgiveness of offenses. So this is the charity as understood by Christ. Benevolence towards everyone, kind of easy. We can all be nice, right? We can play ball. Indulgence towards the imperfections of others, that's where things get a little bit tricky, right? Because it's easy to forget that we also have imperfections, that we also wish people to be indulgent with us, right? And then the forgiveness of offenses. And that's like the third step on this little ladder. And that gets really hard as well, especially if the offense is really, really deep and it really, really bleeds and it still hasn't healed, right? And this is why reincarnation is so amazing, because oftentimes we will be placed exactly with the people that we need to, whether we've offended them in the past and we have to, through living through the activities day to day, through the actions of love, of indulgence, of benevolence, heal that offense that is so ingrained into the person's heart, where they might not even remember because of the forgetfulness of the past, but they bring. So there's kind of like, that one family member that always gets to us. That's where we need to pay attention. So benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness. So the definition of without charity, there is no salvation gets a lot broader, right? It's no longer just about money. And in the following questions, after 886, we are going to see charity encompassing all of our relationships with other human beings, and that in this process, we should avoid humiliating them, putting them, out there for other people to see, precisely when they're vulnerable, whether we are helping them. You know how people will help and they're like, let me take a photo here of this good deed that I'm doing. I mean, that hurts people. Or, where we're working the indulgence of their imperfections, but we make sure that they remember that, as if we don't have, a mirror for our souls in which we can see our own imperfections, or even then forgiving them, but pointing out, hey, I forgave you. So just remember, I forgave you. So let's go back to the Samaritan. The Samaritan's first was charitable, but so were his hands, his time, his attention, the respect, and his willingness to interrupt his plans and tend to someone else. In the 21st century, many people will say, I don't have enough money to help everyone. I don't, right? But Spiritism responds, perhaps money isn't what the person in front of you needs. You know how sometimes our kids, and we figure, just give them everything that they need so that we're pals with them. Sometimes money is not what they need. They need education. They need patience. They need somebody who will listen to them without judging. And this extends to anybody. They might need transportation. They may need encouragement. They may also need somebody to defend them, somebody that forgives them, or simply needs to be treated with dignity. So the first challenge is, do we actually see the suffering? right? This is something that we have to ask, because the 21st century Samaritan learns to notice hidden suffering. They learn to see the signs for hidden suffering. So, the Gospel According to Spiritism on chapter 13 will bring us a beautiful passage. Beautiful. It's actually my husband's favorite. It's called Hidden Misfortunes, right? And this is a beautiful example of this woman. She's really high up in society. But she's charitable. And when she goes to tend to this family, she changes her clothes as to not, kind of like not offend, but make the other people feel more vulnerable in their situation, because they really need financial resources, medical attention, medicine. And so she changes her clothes. She's not gone with her best Sunday attire, right? And we're not doing this to feign humility, but also to place ourselves almost like, with each other, because there's nobody better than someone else. We are all here. And that's why we are all together in this world of trials and expiations. This is why Jesus called all of us to be part of his flock. We are all equal. And that not only does she go to tend to the family, right? She brings her daughter along so that her daughter can learn the meaning of charity. And it's interesting because the daughter, I think she wanted to buy little clothes for the children and stuff. And she says, no, you do it with your own hands, right? So back then, if you knit or if you sew or whatever, back then it was common, because they didn't have Amazon, at one click, they didn't have that. So of course she's teaching her daughter that what kind of credit will you have if I simply give it to you for you to give it to them? So do your part, basically, right? And what Allan Kardec is trying to bring out in these beautiful teachings in the Gospel According to Spiritism is that major disasters often provoke generosity. And that's awesome. I mean, we are here in Florida. It's hot as can be. It's only August 8th, and every Floridian is concerned about hurricanes, right? It comes with the package of living in a nice, tropical place right by the beach, but we have hurricanes. And that usually provokes generosity when it hits, and we see folks scrambling because they lost their homes or they lost everything that they have. And there is that effect within our heart that goes, right? It lights up. But when that's done, it kind of goes back to its normal thing. So what Kardec is pointing out is that sometimes there are private catastrophes that go by unnoticed. And he says that true generosity learns to discover it even before someone asks for help, when they're at their most vulnerable. And it's not because they're proud, or it could be because they're proud, but it's maybe because they feel that they don't deserve it. Maybe because they feel that nobody's going to pay attention to them, right? So the 21st century Samaritan, he learns to notice the hidden suffering. It goes beyond social media, right? So today people can look completely fine, but they can still be carrying loneliness, grief. They can be having financial pressure, family difficulties. They can be having caregiving exhaustion. Ever see somebody that takes care of, a family member or kids with special needs? They may be dealing with rejection, with discouragement, with fear. I mean, there is so much fear happening in our world today, or spiritual emptiness. So we live at a time of extraordinary communication, but we also see that it's a time of extraordinary invisibility, right? Because we can have hundreds of social media contacts. I mean, who doesn't want to have 1 million followers? But really, no one, somebody just said I don't, but really, how are we really doing? Nobody asks that. How is that person really doing? And then when that beautiful influencer takes their lives, we're like, wow, how could that be? Well, the priest saw the wounded man. The Levite saw the wounded man. The problem was not eyesight. The problem was what happened after seeing. So we can ask ourselves, how many people do I see every day without really seeing them? Right? How does that go? And often, it comes with something that hurts the process of being the Good Samaritan in the 21st century, right? Because you may say, well, I didn't hurt anybody, but that's not enough. That's not enough. It's the Spirit's book on question 642 and 643 says it beautifully. 642, Allan Kardec asks the benevolent spirits whether it's simply good enough to refrain from doing evil, from doing bad things. And the answer is no. We are also responsible for the good within our ability, within our reach that we failed to do. And there's a beautiful story narrated by the spirit author, Brother X, to oh my God, Marcelo, my husband's right here, I forget the name of the, Hermínio de Miranda, in which he talks about how Allan Kardec came up with question 642. And it was when Kardec fell asleep. He was asleep, and his soul was taken to the spirit realm by this really high order spirit. He couldn't really see who it was, but he saw so much suffering. And Allan Kardec is taken with not only compassion, but a bit of anguish because there was so much suffering. And so he says, who are these spirits that are suffering like this? I mean, if you read about the Umbral, this is nothing like the Umbral. The Umbral was like a walk in the park. This was a worse place in the spirit realm. And he starts asking, are these the people that crucified Christ? Are these the people that, maybe persecuted the Christians? Are these the people? And Allan Kardec starts questioning who they are. And then finally, he says, please, good soul, tell me, who are these spirits? And the spirit says, these people were people that knew the gospel of Christ, the teachings, but failed to practice. So, wow, right? I mean, I get goosebumps every time I remember that story, every time I read that story, every time I narrate that story, because let's think about ourselves in the spirit realm. I mean, there are repercussions. We're not going to be punished, but our conscience is going to scream. Where are God's laws written? In the conscience. I mean, everybody. There isn't one person that does not have the laws imprinted within their soul, right? So there is no one who cannot do some good. So it goes on to say that every day, the contact that we have with other human beings give us opportunities to be useful. That's what it means. It is living in this world without belonging to it, meaning we are here, we are able to do things, but without belonging to it, meaning the materialistic things, we don't get attached to it. We utilize it for what is needed for ourselves, for others. We pay attention to other people that are immediately beside us. And sometimes it's a simple smile. I mean, when you go through the gate at your home, right, to take a look at the guard and smile at them, or bring down your window and say, hey, can I get you a Coke? Can I get you, some water? I mean, the guy that comes here, my husband, jokes that Amazon hits our door every single day, but it's only because it's practical, right? We do our groceries on Amazon. We do things on Amazon, but sometimes you see the guy coming. Why not ask, did you eat today? Give them a shake, or shake of a hand, or a shake to drink. I remember this guy came by and it was so hot. And at the same time that I was blessing the guy who discovered the air conditioning because it was so hot, I looked at him and I said, maybe this guy didn't eat. And he had not eaten all day, right? So the thing about it is the priest could have probably said, I didn't rob him. The Levite could have probably said, I didn't beat him. But Jesus asks a deeper moral question. Did you help him? And this moves spirituality from innocence to basically responsibility. So Christian ethics, and let's talk about Christianity because Spiritism is revived Christianity. It isn't merely, I didn't do anything wrong. It becomes really, what good was placed within my reach, right? So let's ask, who is the Samaritan today? Who is the Samaritan? The Samaritan at home, first and foremost. So sometimes the wounded traveler is not a stranger. It is the spouse that we have stopped listening to, that has stopped becoming important to us, that's become every day. It could be the aging parent who tells the same story over and over again. And, you know, we go, oh my God, you already told me this story 100 times. Oh, we don't need to say that. Let's listen to it, because when they pass on and we are here, we're going to say, wow, I wish I had listened to that story one more time. It is a child in need of attention when we're tired. And that child asks us to give just one more step. It is a relative whose personality tests our patience. So sometimes it's easier to volunteer for a stranger than to practice charity with the people who know exactly how to irritate us, right? And here's where question 886 becomes truly important: indulgence, benevolence, and forgiveness. It is a Samaritan at work, perhaps somebody who makes a mistake, somebody who's everybody is criticizing. So the modern Samaritan is going to say, can I correct without humiliating? If you're in the boss position, or even if you're in the same position, or somebody that is excluded from the group, that doesn't sit with us in the cafeteria to eat, can I include them? Or somebody that is just overwhelmed, can I share the load, right? Somebody who receives recognition, are we envious? Can we celebrate them without being envious? Because charity doesn't always have to look heroic. Sometimes it looks like kindness when nobody else would blame us for being indifferent. People say, my God, you were kind to that person? I mean, after everything that they did? And then we have the digital Samaritan. And this could be one of the distinctive parts here of our 21st century Samaritan, right? Our phones have created a new road to Jericho. Every day we encounter people online, whether utilizing our tablet, utilizing the PC, the Mac, the iPhone. We also encounter opportunities to wound. Comments. Who doesn't go to comments when a post is there, right? My God, I remember, I don't know what it was that I posted on, that I commented, and that people are like, my God, I didn't mean to say what people thought I said. So we are so quick to react on social media. So think before posting, think before forwarding, think before commenting or exposing someone. Because as I've said this before, and I apologize if I'm being repetitive, the social media has become the public square from over 2,000 years ago, where the adulterous woman comes, she's brought on by the others, and they ask Jesus, what should we do? Because the law establishes that we should stone her to death, right? So when we look at the digital Samaritan, am I pouring oil on the wound or salt? And this is, again, the three elements that we can't forget for the person that would bring on excellent digital ethics: benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness. Indulgence, benevolence is what I'm saying meant to help. Am I reducing a human being at their mistake? And forgiveness, do I need to keep publicly punishing someone forever? The Good Samaritan does not photograph the wounded man to show how charitable he is. He simply helps. It's how amazing how when there's something happening today, people are with their phone instead of going to help. If you guys notice that, right? So this is why we resort to the gospel according to Spiritism at all time. Doing good without ostentation. Don't let your left hand know what your right one is doing, or vice versa. So in a world that asks us to document everything, especially good deeds, the gospel still reaches out to us with a beautiful teaching saying, do acts of love, but there's no need to be posted or seen. So the other thing here that is essential for us to remember is that the Samaritan back then crossed the boundary, right? It's essential that we remember that, because Jesus deliberately makes the hero someone from a group that his audience at that time might have distrusted or disliked. So the Samaritan doesn't ask, is he one of us? Does he believe what I believe? Is he a spiritist? Does he deserve my help? Would he help me? No, the Good Samaritan went over that border. Instead, suffering establishes itself, establishes the relationship, establishes the need for the Samaritan to act. And this is where the good person comes in on chapter 17, item 3 of the Gospel according to Spiritism. It's important to read that. The good person. Allan Kardec describes the truly good person or the moral person as someone who follows the law of justice, love, and charity. And although we may not yet understand fully what that law is, one law, justice, love, and charity, we can do good without expecting payment. We defend the weak. We have acts of benevolence toward people without distinction of race or creed. We see their humanity. We see their humanity, and we see them as brothers and sisters. So our neighbor is not defined by our similarities. Our neighbor is revealed by the opportunity in itself. So Spiritism teaches us about the immortality of the soul, about the progress of the spirit, right? And when we think about this fraternity that we can extend to somebody, it becomes even broader, because the person before me is no longer a stranger, is no longer a difficult worker, is no longer a person from another religion, another generation, another race. No, they are first and foremost an immortal spirit on the very same journey towards perfection that I am. So this changes the way that we start looking at people. I've been following on social media this woman that killed her 3 children, and I am filled with compassion. I have no idea what her state of mind was. And when people, especially the ones that do the autopsy, they start reading to the jurors the state of the bodies of the little kids, she is sobbing. I mean, she is sobbing, and I caught myself crying with her. I have no idea what led that woman to do what she did. I know that God is just. So something happened, and I'm not saying, I'm not even going to get into that. I'm just getting into what she's going through at that moment. So I, as a digital Samaritan, I'm looking at her with an eye of compassion, right? To do that, we have to be very aware of the real enemy of the Samaritan spirit, which is selfishness. We have to be careful, because the Spirit's book, question 913, we see the spirits identify selfishness as the root of the other vices, moral vices, and they say that it is incompatible with justice, love, and charity. It offers us another way to interpret this parable. The opposite of love is not always hatred. The opposite of love can be not my problem. The priest may have had a reason. The Levite may have had a responsibility. Maybe they were busy. Maybe they were afraid. Maybe they didn't want any complications. Maybe they thought someone else would come and help. Somebody else would do it. Familiar, right? Our century gives us countless sophisticated versions of somebody else will take care of that. But charity begins when the question changes from whose responsibility it is to basically, what can I do? So the Good Samaritan didn't just rescue, he accompanied. There is this subtle lesson in the story, because the Samaritan doesn't simply perform the emergency intervention. He tells the innkeeper that he will come back. So this is a beautiful lesson for modern charity, because sometimes we love the dramatic moments of helping, right? But true care frequently requires continuity. Continuity. We send one encouraging message, but do we check back again next week, right? Let's say somebody that we know that is going through a hard time. We send them a beautiful message. This happens often at the Spiritist Center. We'll see somebody that will come in with deep pains, and we will talk to them through the fraternal assistance. We will recommend, things that could help ease up the situation that they're going through. The person starts feeling better, but then, all of a sudden, maybe 3-4 months will pass by, and somebody will say, hey, have you heard from so-and-so? So we visit once, but do we return? So the Good Samaritan in the 21st century, especially at the Spiritist Center or with their friends or professional workers, they'll check on them again, because compassion notices, charity approaches, and love accompanies. And this is where we go back to the aspect of without charity, there is no salvation, right? Because the gospel, according to Spiritism, when they teach us about this beautiful teaching of the Good Samaritan, we see that Jesus did not make the hero the person with the correct title. He just made the person the hero who loved and who loved the most. A very practical guidance that we can have here for the Samaritan checklist is this right here: see, approach, listen, serve, share, and protect. So we see, we notice a person, we approach, meaning we don't let discomfort become an excuse for distance. How often do we do that? Oh my God, if my husband finds out that I actually approach this person, or if my friends find out that I'm actually helping this guy, or no, we don't let discomfort become a reason for distance. We listen. We discover what they actually need rather than assuming. We serve, basically to do what is within our ability, okay? It's not going up, I'm not able to do this, so I'm going to try to do everything or become financially, in trouble for helping somebody because they lost their job and I'm going to give them my entire paycheck. No, it's to do within our ability. Share. They share time, resources, knowledge, attention, a kind word. They protect, meaning they preserve the person's dignity. And this is also really important. Having a situation where we can help somebody, but then saying, it would really mean the world to me if I could help you with this for this or that reason, meaning you bring the person up, you make them feel as if they're the ones, not as if they are. You make them feel like they're also helping you. Because whenever we actually see, approach, listen, serve, share, and then we protect, which means preserving their dignity, we are actually helping ourselves. When we do that with sincere, the intent, this is another word in Spiritism that we always talk about is intent. What are our intentions? Let me go to the private chats here, make sure that I'm on time. So which one is the hardest for me? Which one of these is the hardest for me? Is it seeing somebody? No, we can notice people, or maybe not. Maybe we haven't learned how to see, If you ever watched that movie, Avatar, they say, I see you. I see you. I see your humanity. I see your pain. I see your needs. We approach, we listen, we serve, we share, we protect, and we return. Meaning, don't let compassion disappear once the emotional moment has passed. Right? And just so that we can start closing our reflection, we're going to say 2,000 years ago, we had this parable. And 2,000 years later, the road to Jericho is still crowded. This is why I love this image of New York City here. There are still wounded travelers, deep wounds. There are still people who see and walk past. There are still people that has us, here Jesus asking the very same questions. Who is my neighbor? And maybe we can't heal every wound. You may say, oh, I don't think I can heal every wound. Maybe we can't solve the problem of every social issues. That's true. Sometimes we can't. When I hear people talking about, this or that leader doing this, and this goes from like mayor all the way up, okay? The thing really is, what are we doing? Because we can make a difference. Maybe we don't have the Samaritan's money. Maybe we don't have his strength or his opportunity. But the Spirit's book reminds us that there is nobody that cannot do some good. Every morning we wake up and we step into our own road to Jericho. Somebody is going to test our patience and need. Somebody is going to need understanding. Somebody is going to need forgiveness. Somebody is going to need practical help. Somebody may just simply need to know that they have not been forgotten. So the question for the 21st century spiritist is not only who is my neighbor, but it becomes when somebody wounded cross my path, will I become their neighbor? And this is why we reach the end of our study today as if we're still hearing him tell us about this beautiful parable. And as the Good Samaritan of the 21st century, hearing him saying, go and do likewise. Thank you so much for your attention. Have a great day.
Thank you, Andrea. Very nice. I really like the approach and, of course, the more of a modern way of looking to the parable. Like you mentioned initially, it is ageless. Andrea, we have a couple of questions and comments for you. But before we delve into that, so we have some announcements. The first one is that you can register now for the 20th U.S. Spiritist Symposium, which is going to be hosted by the U.S. Spiritist Federation. And the event will take place on November 7th at the AC Hotel in Fort Lauderdale Airport in Dania Beach, Florida. This year's theme is the Compass for Spiritual Progress. For registration and more information about the talks and speakers, please visit spiritistsymposium.org. We also cordially invite you to the 19th Spiritist Conference of Georgia on October 10th and 11th. This theme is the Spiritist View of Afflictions. Lectures will be in English and in Portuguese with simultaneous interpretation. A discounted registration will be offered through August 31st. You can visit spiritistconference.com or use the displayed QR code for details and registration. We were talking, Andrea, you were talking about social media before, but again, there's opportunity for us to engage in good social media. In this case here, the social media channels, and stay updated on upcoming events and activities. Also, don't forget to visit the U.S. Spiritist bookstore at spiritistbooks.us, and that's where you're going to find a wide selection of Spiritist books, including several exciting new releases. If you work with Spiritist youth or are interested in educational resources, be sure to explore the Family, Youth, and Children Spiritist Education (FIXI) website at spiritismkids.us, where you will discover excellent materials and ideas for youth educators. And also, take a moment, if you have not done so yet, to check out the Be My Hope app, which offers inspiring daily messages to uplift your spirit, and it's available for free on both the App Store and Google Play. Right, Andrea, now let's turn our attentions to the comments and questions. There's still time, remember, if you're watching us live, there's still time for you to send yours, so please feel free to share your thoughts or questions with us. The first one here, Andrea, comes from the U.S. Spiritist Federation and reads as follows. If charity is the measure of spiritual progress, what opportunities to be a good Samaritan might we be overlooking in our everyday lives?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, while we are talking about the opportunities, really are placed right before us, whether it's in our homes or, I remember this story in the book Sex and Destiny by the medium Francisco Cândido Xavier and the spirit author Andreia Lewis. And there was this situation that was going to take place, and it was going to be really bad. Really bad for this girl. We're talking about a situation of abuse that, was to take place by her father. And Andreia Lewis talks about how it was a trap. She was going to be falling into a trap. And He says, it was amazing. I was looking for anybody, just anybody who was in tune, who was in prayer, in meditation, that we could access as the spiritual antenna for them to just simply walk in the room, right? As to avoid a situation happening. And this to me spoke profoundly, because the benevolent spirits, they will look for us to be available to do good deeds. To sometimes it's somebody that we're walking across the street and we simply notice them, and something makes us, kind of guides us, really pushes us towards helping, towards starting a conversation. It could be online. I mean, I could be watching this right now, and somebody watching this presentation, and I mentioned something of the Spirit's book or the Gospel According to Spiritism, and they may reach out. I mean, we think about charity and we think about great mountains that we have to climb and, get to the top and be victorious. And there are little things here and there that we can do that often passes by unnoticed. Right, Glaucio? So, I mean, even at home, I remember situations. I've been married for 18 years, and how easy it is for me to kind of say, notice, no, my husband is having a bad day. He's just having a bad day, But do I go to him and say, hey, what's going on? I mean, that's an opportunity to be charitable, as opposed to simply becoming irritated and say, he'll deal with this, and, he'll chew on it, over it, and it will pass. Sometimes it doesn't pass, right? Sometimes it's something that the person is going through, our kid, our friend. So I think that this is one of the things, and when we think about charity and salvation, people think of really, really, really great deeds like Mother Teresa. Let's remember that they came with a mission, and so did we. Our mission sometimes is to attend to the very same people that are immediately in our homes, as opposed to be looking outside, because a lot of people also would take a lot of time doing, charitable things outside of the home, completely ignoring those that are really in need of them at that moment. And often we see somebody doing that because it's easier. It's as if they're unconsciously running away from the responsibility that they actually agreed with prior to reincarnating. So just be mindful of that. I hope that answers. If not, please, Glaucio, correct me and add your...
It made a lot of sense. Thank you very much. So also from the U.S. Spiritist Federation, how can we treat people who hold strong political, social, or cultural views and act aggressively towards us as our neighbors?
It's the golden rule, to do unto others as we wish them to do unto us. And one of the things that we would wish somebody to do to us is respect our political, social, or cultural views. Not act aggressively towards them as well, because it's interesting. If I have this political, social, or cultural view and you have yours, and we're going at each other, I mean, I'm not going to make your mine and you're not going to make mine. You know what I mean? It's hard to see people having, like a very friendly chit chat about things like that. Let's include even the World Cup here, right? I'm one of those people that would, cheer for the United States when it's playing against Brazil, for instance, right? Or it's an example, but it really does happen. Sorry, guys, but it does happen. I love, the World Cup, and we see it's impossible to expect the same when we are acting the same. We become very passionate about what we believe in, and that's our right. But we can also put on an action of our political, social, and cultural view into actions without hurting the person's own line of limitation there of what we, you don't surpass that line, the limits, the respect that we have. We have our own obligation. They have their own. We have our opinions. They have their own. So when we start looking at our neighbor with those eyes, when they become aggressive towards us, we'll take a step back. We put out the fire, not with putting more coal into it, but perhaps saying, you know what, let us agree to disagree. And that's okay. You're still my friend. You're still my family member. It's amazing, Glaucio. People stop talking to their family members because of a political thing, as if those politicians see what's happening, that they don't know who we are. And we are putting the relationships into the line of fire for no reason, really. I mean, why? So if I am this party and my husband is that party, I mean, let us just respect each other. You have your views and I'll have mine. And if we know that this is something that is going to cause issues, let us not bring it up. If we see it happening in Thanksgiving, it's coming up, how many people look at the Thanksgiving table, how things come up. Today we have issues on, I mean, the I'm not even going to bring up what it is, but there's so many issues that come up that actually bring the dire situations and discussions become arguments, and arguments become aggressiveness, whether it's physical or verbal, to the point where the tie breaks and meaningless. I mean, really, if you get to the spirit plane, do we really think that by defending that idea and breaking relationships really brought our progress up a little notch? Or do we simply do our duty as citizens, believing in what we believe in, putting into practice best we can, and letting people be? When we talk about what's happening out in the world, the wars, the bombs, this and that, we can't do anything about that, but we can do something about the bombs that we throw at each other, the wars that we cause, even within our families, breaking our family up. You end up having people for you and against you. It's so meaningless. I mean, let's do our duty. Let's, if this is my political view, I defend it by putting into practice by voting. That's what I do. And I go on about my life. I don't need to broadcast it, right? A lot of people will say, but I need to be aggressive online so people can see. Well, if you're being aggressive, people are not going to look at you because they're going to say that person is crazy. So you want to bring a point of view, bring your point of view and let it be, right? Don't start attacking. But I rest assured, if you put that point of view, whether it's cultural, social, or political, there will be people against it that are going to start bombarding you with ideas and this and that. So just ask yourself, is it worth the energy? Is it really worth my time? Right? So just things that we need to start considering. As the Good Samaritan, perhaps, these are some things that we can just keep walking and not stop and try to tend to it or change people's mind, especially by being aggressive
Thanks
towards
for
them.
bringing up Thanksgiving. This is actually a very practical advice, because when you have
Yeah.
all your family members,
God.
yeah, and then somebody, let's say you have 20 people in your house, somebody's going to say something. So it's good to be the Good Samaritan at that point and be the one that diffuses the situation.
Yeah. Diffusing the situation is an art. Learning from people that know how to do that is amazing. My husband is somebody who does that. He knows how to diffuse. Me, I'm like, rah, right? So by living with him for 18 years, you kind of start learning a little bit, and you start thinking about, it's just not worth putting that energy like that. Let's respect each other's space, and that's it.
Awesome. Good advice, Andrea. So TV Say has a question, what does salvation actually mean in Spiritism? If the spirit is immortal and never ceases to progress, is salvation a destination, a state of consciousness, or a process of spiritual evolution?
Yeah. Salvation is, in the aspect of Spiritism, what I like to call that one single fatality that is our self-illumination and the ability to conquer the kingdoms within ourselves. That's what salvation should mean. The objective that we get to it as incarnation by incarnation by incarnation, we start getting better and better and better. So it is that one fatality that all of us have, which is the process of self-illumination, the process of where we start becoming less and less attached to matter and more evolved spiritually, where we are able to understand what is the kingdom within, right? That teaching that Jesus brings, the teachings that the kingdom of God is within you, right? It is a very personal, untransferable action of trying to aim to become better today than I was yesterday, so that in every reincarnation process, I'm going one step forward as opposed to falling two step back. Which in reincarnation, when you get better, you don't fall to step back, but you stagnate, right? So we don't want to do that in the present reincarnation. And this is a really good question, because a lot of people say, well, if I am immortal, I'm just going to keep doing whatever I want to do, have the fun that I want to have. If people are no longer able to do good, why am I going to be good? I'm just going to do whatever people are doing. And that's a very wrong view, because life has given us, has invested on us to be where we are, to give us what we have, the ability to be able perhaps to, I'm going to say something very silly here, but let's do it because you and I are bilingual, to have the ability to speak two languages. I mean, you have the ability to disseminate the good in two languages. Let's consider that. So salvation is making the most of what our present incarnation has given us to able to grow a little bit more. So it goes far from the aspect of dogmatic salvation and comes to the point of proactive action in our reincarnation. It's not something that you can do for me. It's something that only I can do for myself. And a beautiful example of this, I'm going to tell you, is if you've read the series by Emmanuel, let's talk about them 2,000 years ago, 50 years later, renunciation. I think I got the order wrong, but doesn't matter. Paul and Stephen, and there is one more that I forget.
Hail Christ.
Hail Christ. Thank you. There are 5 books, right? The characters in those books are people we know. Okay. And Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, who I like to call Dr. B, the spirit guide who looks after us from the 2 spheres of the Americas, the North, the South, and the Central, of course. Chico Xavier was one of the characters in that series. Mei, who was also a spirit author that wrote through Chico Xavier, she's on those books as well. And I forget the other guy's name. Rocha, I forget his first name. He was Mei's husband in this life, Arnaldo Rocha. And one time, they are all in that book, okay? And if you read the series, you see that they're going up and up and up and up. But Arnaldo Rocha, who's one of the characters, is kind of like staggering behind. Spiritually speaking, progressively speaking, he hasn't progressed as much as the other. He hasn't evolved as much as the other spirits. Like, Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, Chico Xavier. I mean, wow, those are some really high levels of, spirits to reach their progress. And one time, somebody actually interviewed Arnaldo Rocha after everybody had died. Chico Xavier had died. Mei, who was his present wife, had died. Dr. Bezerra de Menezes was no longer present. He was already in the spirit plane. Emmanuel, of course, he was already in the spirit plane. And they asked him, it's like, how is it knowing that you were linked to all those people? I mean, that must be amazing. Glaucio, let me use you an example, right? Let's say, Glaucio, wow, you were part of that, group that make up this family in this series. How would you feel about that? A lot of people would say, wow, I feel amazing. I mean, just to know that I am linked to them, right? But Arnaldo Rocha said something else. He said, I am embarrassed because I am still staggering behind and they've evolved so much. So, I'm sorry, what was the word?
No, he was Tassiano.
Oh yeah, but my husband is reading here. Tassiano was his character in the book.
Awesome.
Because he's not listening because I have the earpods and he's participating. So anyway, so Arnaldo Rocha said that. He's like, it's as if seeing your best friends graduating and going on to, college, but you are not. You're still going to have to redo, your senior year in high school. You're seeing your friends graduating from college and going on to really high, paying jobs, but you didn't do your work. So you're not having this really high paid position. I'm just using it as an example, okay? So that's what I mean. It's personal. And when we see that, when we're in the spirit plane and we see our loved ones going far and far and far, we want to be with them. We want to go close to them. Jesus is our aim. So I'd say the personal salvation is every step that we take and we know that we're getting closer to our Master Jesus.
Awesome, Andreia. This is great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
From U.S. Spiritist Federation, how can we overcome the temptation of personal convenience to ensure we do not pass opportunities for good as did the priest and the Levite?
We are going to often make that mistake. We will. right? This aspect of personal convenience, bypassing an opportunity to do good. We're not going to be good 100% of the time. I'm not. I mean, anybody that says they are, they're either fooling themselves or I don't know. I mean, sorry, I don't mean to judge, but judging, and I say that. So when we look at this, overcoming this temptation of being, of personal convenience, and we don't do the good, there is a very practical guide that is also brought to us by Saint Augustine, and it is a reflection that we do at the end of the day, things that might have happened, opportunities that perhaps we had to do good. And that could be anything. I mean, that could be, the opportunity not to answer somebody, abruptly, or to jump on each other's throats at work, and we do something that is going to be good for us, but not very good for my coworker. What St. Augustine would tell us is at the end of the day, he would do he would reflect and see exactly where he failed and aim to do better the following day. So I think for us, it's a constant state of asking to be exactly what Christ told us to do, to pray and be vigilant, right? When we are being vigilant, we are aware of things that are happening. We are easily accessible by the benevolent spirits when we need to listen to their instructions, when we're listening to their alertness, when we're listening to their guidance. So it's really about that. It's overcoming ourselves. Sometimes, it is working on that one enemy of the Samaritan spirit, which is selfishness, and we all have it. And sometimes it's just easy. It's just easy, to let a relationship go to waste, as opposed to working towards, building or rebuilding that relationship yet again. So it's easy. No, it's not. Is it going to take a lot of us? Yep, it's going to take a lot of us. But how people work out their bodies, their physical bodies, and they're getting built and everything else? That's not me. But we can work out our spirits and our perispirits, developing the muscles of endurance, of being the endurance of, letting selfishness go and embracing the goodness that is within our hearts. And we can all do that. So
that's a good analogy, by the way. It takes practice, right? You gotta practice.
Yeah, it does. It does take practice. I mean, if you work out, that you go from 5 dumbbells to 8, then you're at 12, 15, and it gets harder and harder. Let me tell you something else. It's going to become harder and harder because the good spirits will know, wow, they already went through this, where they understand, let's go a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And that's a good thing. So whenever something calls our attention and it's hard, that's where we aim to try.
That's a good point, because when we're trying to do good, right? That's why when you're trying to do good, and then things start getting harder, and sometimes we feel discouraged because I'm such, quote unquote, right? I'm such a good Samaritan, and things are not working out for me.
Yeah.
From U.S. Spiritist Federation, in the digital age, can we actually empathize with people who only show their perfect lives online?
I'm wondering what that means.
In the digital age, can we actually empathize with people who only show their perfect line?
I mean, I'm wondering if the person is. I mean, we can. I mean, if you look at it, there is always a way to take a look at how people are living their lives on social media, and have this empathetic view. Sometimes, but not make the little of them. We also see a lot of people that seem to have their perfect lives, and there is no such thing. You see people that are, we try to teach this to our kids and the youth, especially the Spiritist Center, that there is no perfection. I mean, what we see online as perfect lives, they are imaginary, they're illusions. I mean, the real world, the real day-to-day is not constantly smiling, beautiful. I mean, if you wake up in the morning and you kind of look like that, it doesn't work that way. And this is symbolic, okay? We are going to have moments where we are disfigured. I mean, we are a mess. Who doesn't have moments like that? So we should empathize with everybody that we see online, because we don't know people's lives. We don't know what they go through. right? And this is something that we should remember. It's interesting that I was watching a TV show called Family Feud. I don't know if you've ever seen that. I love it. It's the moments that I give myself laugh out for with Steve Harvey. And usually they have two families, and they're kind of going like with Q. I don't know, just watch it. Anyway, I went onto the comments to see what people would answer on the questions. And this one woman made a comment about this family of beautiful women. And she's like, can we say Botox a lot? And I'm like, wow, that's all she saw. I mean, there was humor in that. They were laughing with each other. They were supporting each other. And all this woman could see was the Botox and the beautiful faces of the gorgeous women that were there. I mean, a lot of times when we look at people, we are quick to judge, right? We are quick to judge. We don't know if those people have insecurities and that's why they resorted to facial reharmonization. We don't. So we should empathize. We should be, kind with everybody that we see. It's not always going to be easy, okay? We are going to see situations where people are using social media to do some of the most stupid things that you may see to get views and likes and to grow. Perhaps leaving a line about charity, about kindness, because maybe somebody's going to read that and say, you know what, maybe Glaucia's right. I'm looking at this the wrong way. And I often see that happening in the comments. I love reading the comments to see how people think. And it's good to see that there is good in the world. There is, the tragedy, the dramas, the things that we see happening online a lot of times doesn't reflect how good our world is becoming, and we can become good with it. We can be part of that good that we see in the world.
This is awesome, Andrea. Thank you so very much. Comment here. Thank you, Andrea, for your words and hard
Thank
work
you.
for bringing
Thank you, Adriana.
It was awesome. Yeah. And Jussara is with us as well. Awesome. So, right. And heartfelt thanks to everyone who joined us today in our talk, and as well to those who regularly follow us on the weekly Spiritist Talk series. And everybody's continuing engagement is truly appreciated. We invite you to join us again next Saturday at 11 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time for our next live session, where João Korngold will be exploring the topic, the Spiritist Center, Harvard School and Hospital of the Soul. We look forward to have you with us then. Andrea, again, thanks a lot. Before we close, could you please share your final remarks and then lead us in the closing prayer?
Yes, just the final remarks that we have here. The United States Spiritist Federation does a great job at trying to disseminate Spiritism every week that we see here with different topics. My final remarks does not have to do with the presentation that I had myself, but in supporting what the United States Spiritist Federation does, and perhaps even partaking in helping them grow and helping them disseminate these teachings evermore. So if you saw something that you liked, maybe share, maybe even reach out to the United States Spiritist Federation, see how you can be of assistance online on Instagram, Facebook, and everything else. And as for me, it was a great honor to participate in this morning's program. So thank you. And thank you, Glaucio, for hosting this. And thanks, João and Dan, that are on the backstage facilitating this live. So let us close our eyes if we wish to, but definitely open our hearts in gratitude to our dear Master Jesus for being present, still with us. Perhaps we were there 2,000 years ago and we didn't really heed the message, hear it, internalize it. But he calls upon us, yet again, to be reincarnated in the 21st century where we have the Spiritist teachings, which symbolically speaking, according to Joanna de Angelis, is the Master walking among us yet again. And whether we are the one that strives to simply touch his tunic or have him over like Lazarus wished to by climbing the tree and just taking a glimpse of him, or being the ones that are filled with symbolic words like sins, but mistakes, wishing to have him look at us and say, go and don't sin yet again. Here we are again, dear Jesus. We are the ones in the public square, hoping to be with you hoping to learn from you, hoping to internalize your teachings, at least this second time around, so that we can partake in the betterment of the world and be part of this world that becomes better and better as we also progress. We ask for those that are watching at home, please watch over them. Watch over their homes as well, their family members, and be with us in our own homes this morning, today, and always. Bless the United States Spiritist Federation and the International Spiritist Council, as well as the volunteers that work towards disseminating Spiritism in the world, in this beautiful world that we live in. Thank you so much, and so be it.